Best example I can think of helping a child with bedwetting issues came from about 4 months ago when a mother reached out to us after seeing a video just like this one. Her child was very frequently being a bedwetter, like to the point where it was almost every night, and it became a very stressful situation for the parents and a very stressful and embarrassing situation for the child. I mean, they were trying everything in their knowledge to help the situation. They obviously weren't letting the child drink liquid before bedtime. They had special sheets to make the cleanup process easier. They tried rewards and bribes. They even had special pajamas that were absorbable. They even were waking him up every night to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, which just means everyone in the entire family was not getting a good night's sleep. And probably the worst of all is that he was super embarrassed because he could never attend his birthday parties or anything like that that included a sleepover at a friend's house. Thankfully, the mom did eventually come across our page where we were able to explain neurologically based care and the root cause of what was going on. On our very first phone call, I virtually guaranteed the mom that the child would have a retained spinal galant reflex. And if you're not familiar with what the spinal galant reflex is, and you do have a child who is struggling with bedwetting issues, let me take just a couple seconds to explain what the reflex is and how to test for it at home, because if you see it on your child, it is a very huge indicator that that is contributing to their bedwetting issues. Okay, so this is how we're going to see if your child has a spinal galant reflex. So what you'll do is you'll just have them start by going on their hands and knees like this, and they just have a neutral spine. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to lift the back of their shirt to expose their low back about to right here. And then when you have skin on skin and you have their low back exposed, what you'll do is you will stroke their low back by their spine. So like if this is the spine, you would stroke right here, and then you'd go a little bit further out and stroke here and stroke here. So you're stroking on their back. And what you're doing is when you stroke, if they start moving like this, and you stroke, and then they move, and you stroke, and they move, and then you go to the other side, and this is their spine, and you stroke with your finger, and they move, and you stroke with your finger, and they move, and then you keep working further and further out. If they keep doing that, and they keep moving, that means it's a positive indicator for the spinal galant reflex. So the main thing is this is a reflex. It's not just them being ticklish. This is a primitive reflex that they were born with and they never got rid of, and now it's contributing to their bedwetting issues. And I'm out of time right now, so I'll make a part 2. All right, guys, this is part 2 of the bedwetting issues videos. So what we ended with was the spinal galant reflex and how to check for it at home. So if your child did have this reflex, it is a huge indicator that that is contributing to their bedwetting issues. Again, this is a primitive reflex, so that just means that these are reflexes that we're all born with. We're all born with a spinal galant reflex, but they should go away by about the first year of life. And if they don't, in this case with the spinal galant, it can contribute to bedwetting issues later on. And of course, the child had this reflex, and the mother was amazed. She'd never heard of this before. And I said, the second thing that you probably have never heard of before that I expect your child to have, or that I would expect to see, is either inaccurate eye movements or eye motor movements or inaccurate eye accuracy. So this is what I mean by that. So when I tell my eyes to dart this way, it's this frontal eye field right here in our brain that tells it to go that way. And opposite, when I get my eyes to shoot this way, it's this frontal eye field that gets it to shoot this way. And what also resides right here, right next to the frontal eye fields, are our micturition centers. And these are the centers that tell our bladder when to contract and when to relax. So if we do functional tests to test eye saccades and how well your eyes can dart back and forth and if they can do it accurately, what we're doing is seeing if those areas of the brain are either fatigued or underdeveloped or underperforming. And if we see that in the eyes, we can reasonably assume that the micturition centers that are in the same exact spot of the brain are also either underdeveloped or fatigued or causing issues with the bladder. So one functional eye test that I use in my office is I'll just make two targets like this, and you can do this at home to see your child's eye movements if you'd like, and then I just have them look back and forth at the targets as fast as they can with their eyes. And usually what I'll see in these kids is they can push their eyes one way really well, and then it's almost like this eye field has a really hard time pushing the eyes back. So it's really well this way, and then it's hard to go this way. So it'll look like boom, 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 boom. They just have a hard time pushing their eyes one way, but they have an easier time pushing it the other way. And another thing I'll see is, like, let's say I'm trying to get them to move their eyes this way to this target. What they'll do is they'll either undershoot or overshoot. They have trouble getting their eyes to go right to the target. So what they might do is they might completely overshoot it and then come back. Their eyes might overshoot and then come back. Or otherwise, they might undershoot and then push it the rest of the way. So if I tell them, okay, I want you to look here, their eyes might go boom, boom, or they might go boom, boom. And they aren't able to go right to the target. All right, guys, I'm out of time again. I'm making a part 3, don't worry. Okay, part 3 of bedwetting issues. So when I explained the eye movement thing to the mom, I showed on a recorded video his eye movements and how they were overshooting and undershooting, and also how he was struggling to go one way versus the other. And I explained how that affects the micturition centers because they're in the same area of the brain, and that made sense to her. And because the child was in the office and doing an exam, I could see that the third thing was prevalent that I see in bedwetting, and that is mouth breathing. Kids that have bedwetting issues are usually mouth breathers. Their noses are really plugged up. They've lost the habit of nasal breathing, and everything is breathing in and out through their nose, especially at night, like sleep apnea, or if they're just, if they're just sleeping and their mouth is just wide open, that is an indicator that they are just mouth breathing the entire time, which is going to throw off the oxygen to CO2 ratios, which is going to affect the brainstem. It's going to affect the bladder. And very lastly, the last thing I see in kids with bedwetting issues that I also saw in this child, he had the 4-for-4 combo, and it just made complete sense why he was having bedwetting issues. The fourth thing was a nerve system that's in distress. So our nerve system can be in one of two areas. It can be pegged over in the fight or flight, the gas pedal, the red alert, or it can be over here in the restful and calm area. Most kids with bedwetting issues are over in the fight or flight in the gas pedal area. When you're in a chronic fight or flight stress state, your autonomic nerve system downregulates. And one of the things that's in the autonomic nerve system is your bladder. So what we have at our office is actually nerve system testing. We have testing that allows us to see if you are in a chronic fight or flight, gas pedal, red alert state, or if you're over here in the restful state. And I could already reasonably assume that this child was going to show signs of chronic stress in a fight or flight state, and that's what we saw. All right, I'll make part 4 of how we helped this child and their family overcome these 4 issues and improve his bedwetting. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. This is the bedwetting issues, part 4. This is how we helped the child and the family overcome the 4 issues that were the root cause of his bedwetting issues. So number 1 was that spinal galant reflex. If you haven't checked your child to see if they have that, go and check in the part 1 video. And then we went over eye movements and eye saccades. If you haven't checked your child for that, go back to part 2. And then we went over mouth breathing and a distressed nerve system. So that's what this child was dealing with that was contributing to his bedwetting issues. I told the mom, based on the exam findings, based on the nerve system testing results, that this was probably going to take about 3 months to address. And what the care plan would include would be specific chiropractic adjustments and our online neurodevelopment program. So what our online neurodevelopment program includes is it is going to have primitive reflex exercises to help get rid of that spinal galant reflex and mature the brainstem. It's going to have eye exercises to strengthen those frontal eye fields and micturition centers. It's going to have breathing exercises to stimulate nasal breathing instead of constantly mouth breathing. And what a specific chiropractic adjustment does is when we give a specific chiropractic adjustment, there is input that goes from the spine to the frontal lobes of the brain and gives the frontal lobes a big stimulus called proprioception. And when your frontal lobes get stimulated like that, it decreases your brain and your nerve system out of that fight or flight response, and it puts it more into that calm and restful state, which is good for bedwetting. The parents were on board with this, the kid was on board with this, and within 3 months, the child had completely stopped bedwetting, and the family and the child were very thrilled. And what I learned from this is parents are very on board to helping their child. Sometimes they just do not have access to the correct information to help them. What I recommend if you are a parent of a child struggling with bedwetting issues, at the very least, just download our free bedwetting ebook that will provide more tips and strategies on neurologically based care and how you can help them. We also do help people virtually with our online program. So if you do live further away from our office, that's what we created to help people of need further away. But regardless, if you're interested in an exam at the office or if you're interested in a virtual program, request a call back from our office and we will walk you through it and we will decide if that's a good strategy and if that will help your child. All right, I enjoyed talking about that. I enjoyed talking about bedwetting. I hope it helped a lot of parents. And check with your child, see if they have those 4 things that were contributing to this child's bedwetting issue.